The year is 1842, and you go to tell your pa, Pa, I don't think that I was meant to chop wood or till the fields and harvest crops. Putting in more than 40 hours a week is not a vibe. I physically can't.
I'm not bashing it. By the way, I'm not bashing anybody who works in 9 to 5 because I can't. I physically can't do it. The more I thought about like how this was gonna be my life, like the more I started to panic. This is gonna be my life. This is gonna be what I do for the rest of my life.
I'm going to shoot straight with you. The people who complain about working a 40-hour week, the people who act like a 9 to 5 is akin to slave labor, are the people who natural selection would have selected at any other timeline in human history. I wonder what these guys would have said about a hard day's work. In my opinion, the type of mentality whose central focus is to avoid work and discomfort in the short term is the opposite of the mentality needed to escape the workforce and build comfort in the long term. I understand that the game is rigged. It's not fair. It's not healthy. Society is sick. It is a system that leaves you crumbs of energy to make your daily bread from. But I also think that the most beneficial practice is to see opportunity in the places where the average person sees oppression, because that is the only mindset that will either A, help you become more fulfilled and grateful in spite of the game, or B, help you play your cards right and escape the game altogether. Let's be real. Most people will spend their lives working for wages, and I think that selling the idea that the average 9 to 5 life is a dead end and selling them despair is poison to society. Selling the idea that people will never be happy, that they will never be worth anything, that they are losers and slaves and brokies until the day that they don't have to work anymore is like holding a carrot out in front of a starving horse. And a lot of people who sell this idea are grifters who only escaped their own 9 to 5 life by telling other people not to work theirs. I wonder what would happen if we all followed that business model and everyone woke up tomorrow to quit their jobs and start their own businesses. Society would collapse. You can sell just about anything to people who are convinced that they are sick and helpless. And I want to stand against this idea because I believe that it is more than possible for anyone to lay the foundations for freedom and fulfillment, but it is not flashy, and it starts with gratitude and mindset and being faithful with the little things, because those who are faithful with little will also be faithful with much. There is so much noise out there telling people about how awful their average lives are, how horrible it is to be normal, that the normal life is not even worth living, that they deserve to be rich and that they shouldn't have to work. But most people are unhealthy and in debt physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, spiritually, overweight, medicated, and living paycheck to paycheck and failing at relationships. Honestly, for most people, their 9 to 5 job is not their biggest issue, but it is an easy one to blame. It is easy to convince yourself that those 40 hours a week are the reason you hate your life, that you can't do anything, that you are a victim, that you are oppressed, that you are a slave. I can only imagine myself standing face to face with my great-grandfather Washington, who was a plantation slave in Mississippi, and telling him about how hard done by I am with the house that I legally own, the multiple vehicles that I legally own, the heating, the air conditioning, the hot showers. I can only imagine telling him about how I just can't handle how unfair my life is and how hard it is to work for 40 hours a week at a job that pays me for every hour I put in. I admit, I don't have a ton of patience and grace for this topic because I think that people today have been sold delusional levels of entitlement and comfort, and in reality, even the average person today has access to abundance and opportunity far beyond the wildest dreams of 99% of all people who have ever lived on planet Earth throughout all of history. Of course, it needs to be said that the economic situation in America and Canada today is absolutely abysmal, especially in comparison to the boomer generation, when the average income could pay for a mortgage, a yearly vacation, and college tuition for a family of four. The average income in the 80s would roughly compare to making over $100K per year today. So I imagine the current state of affairs with the 9-to-5 life would look a little bit different if everyone was making six figures. So I get it. Times are tough. Absolutely. No question about it. And I would love to see that begin to change and have the pendulum swing back. But I don't think that we will get there by demonizing wage work and selling despair. Single income abundance is not the current reality for the average person, and we can either complain about it or we can try to find ways to navigate it successfully. If anything, the grip of government and big business control seems to be tightening, so I think that we need to be doing whatever we can with whatever we have to fight for our autonomy and freedom. Personally, I've put in far more than 40 hours a week every week for the past 5 years to get to where I am now. It has taken me that long to make my first $100,000. And if I could go back, I would have started a lot sooner. Outside of my day job, where I work anywhere between 40 to 60 hours in a week, I also spend a few hours every single day working on my career as a writer, social media creator, investor, coach, public speaker. Why? Because I am willing to do the extra work to plant the seeds necessary in the present for the freedom that I desire to create in the future. Now, is my success a guarantee? Absolutely not. Will I live to see the fruit of my labor? Maybe, maybe not. Tomorrow is not promised. But I have also found that I am way more fulfilled now than I have ever been in my life. I used to spend most of my free time outside of work just trying to escape my reality because I didn't have anything bigger than my reality to work towards. Not everyone's job is going to fill their hearts with purpose and passion, so then it is your job to find things outside of work that give your life a sense of meaning and connection. And FYI, studies show that you are 30% more likely to fail your side hustle if you quit the job that is paying your bills to pursue it. Even Alex Hormozy, who I'm sure you're familiar with if business and success content interests you on the internet, even he talks about how you should not quit your job until it makes sense to do so. It's like scenario one, you quit your job to become an investor, day trader. Or scenario two, you work a full-time evening job that will put money into your portfolio every single day, money that you can now use to trade during the morning market hours. I know who I would put my money on to make their first million. I digress. The system wants you to lose hope for your life. They don't actually want you to be happy with the status quo. They want you to compare your life with all of the things that you see on social media. They want you to be frustrated with your lot in life and to feel stuck, because that is when you are most vulnerable. That is when they can get to you. You can't sell anything to happy, healthy, fulfilled people because they don't need anything. But someone who feels trapped, unsafe, and alone, that is the target audience for big business. That is who they target with consumerism and materialism and escapism and medication and validation and instant gratification. I digress once again. If you have a poor perspective, you will see your job as prison rather than potential. If you choose to see something as an oppressor instead of an opportunity, it will oppress you and it will steal your ability to recognize opportunity. Your mindset is everything. Viktor Frankl spoke at length about this in his book, A Man's Search for Meaning, about how the people who survived the German concentration camps were the ones who had a mindset of purpose bigger than their present pain. If you see your mundane job as your personal hell and you do not seek purpose greater than your present pain, it will destroy you. If you speak about your job as slavery, it will become slavery to you. If you speak about your job as a means to an end, it will become a means to an end. As you think, so you will be. And confirmation bias can work for you or against you. The choice is yours. I have worked in restaurant and people management for many years, and I have seen hundreds of people in these two camps on either end of the spectrum firsthand. I have seen the types of people who drag their feet into work to the job that they believe is oppressing them, who hate every minute that they are there, who constantly underachieve, who are always looking for shortcuts, and by the end of a shift, they are drained and demoralized. I find such people often also struggle to find the energy to do much more in their lives outside of their 40 hours and often end up succumbing to addictive coping mechanisms in their free time. And then on the other hand, I've also seen the types who see the job as an opportunity, who somehow seem to have energy reserves to remain positive and who are hungry to take on overtime when possible. And I find that these people often work a second job on top of that, or are going to school, or are working on some sort of side hustle that they are trying to get going. They have access to a different level of energy because they have a vision for a picture bigger than themselves that they are working towards.
I would rather, do what I do and make 35 grand a year than work a 9 to 5 sitting in some office and get paid 100 grand a year.
I think that people who think this way desire and value freedom above money, which is great. But the problem, or more accurately, the question I have is, how do you define freedom? Because we could argue that homeless people have the most freedom. They have no one to be responsible for or to answer to. And if that is the level of freedom that you desire, go ahead, quit your job, own nothing, go live life on survival mode. But I doubt that's what anyone watching this video wants for themselves. No, I would assume that you want more of a mixture of more control over your schedule, more independence from the system, and more financial freedom. But the path towards those destinations typically requires sacrifice and hard work. That is unless you are born into wealth and can simply rest on the hard work of those who came before you and are afforded the ability and blessing to putz around at your passions and whims in comfort and safety. But I highly doubt that that is the reality for anyone watching this video.
I thought about how this was going to be my life. The more I started to panic, this is going to be my life. This is going to be what I do for the rest of my life as a bank teller sitting in front of a desk, typing in numbers, doing the same thing every single day.
To be honest, I would advise anyone in that young man's position to work that 40-hour job, to make that 100K per year. Just because you take a job doesn't mean that it locks the cage door on the next 40 years of your life. You just have to have a plan. For example, set up a 3-year timeline, like a tour of duty in the military, and for those 3 years live off of the 35K that you claim you prefer and stack the rest. And in your free time you work on your business model and social media and passions. And so now, after 3 years have passed, not only do you have a solid plan that you have been growing and testing and prepping for launch and a platform to support it, but you also have $150,000 in an investment portfolio. So now you can quit your day job that you hate and go buy an apartment and focus on the lifestyle of freedom that you desire, rent free. That is not what I would do with $150,000, but I'm just making a point. And of course, there are very few people who are pulling in 6 figures while having under 40K living costs, but just eat this concept with some salt and think outside of the box. And for what it's worth, I don't mean to pick on the guy that I've been showing in these clips, but his video made for an ideal example for the point I'm trying to get across to you. But I have seen so many videos, countless videos popping up all over the internet lately about this idea of how working a job for hourly wages is oppressive and slavery. And I think a lot of it is pandering to profit off of the chronically online audience. Like this. People who work 9-to-5s hate the chosen ones. Why you can't keep a 9-to-5 as a chosen one. This 9-to-5 life isn't for me. The rat race. And this one, I don't dream of labor. I'm pretty sure this guy talked about how he quit his food service job because he refuses to work in a job if he couldn't have his earrings on, because he refuses to work for any job that wants to control what he does with his body.
Can I wear my earrings to work? And he told me, no, you cannot. That's against the dress code. And right there, that's when I had that epiphany. That's when I realized, okay, if they won't let me wear them, then no other job is going to let me wear them either. Because like I said, IHOP is bottom of the barrel. I'm talking about $7.75 an hour, and they won't let me wear them. So I remember I left that interview with the intention of not taking that job. Okay, I had no plans of taking that job because I did not want to compromise on my principles and, everything that I stood for.
Imagine being so soft and self-centered and without purpose that the hill you choose to die on is having your ears pierced, acting like if you had to take out your earrings to go to work so you could provide for your basic needs, the damage of such an oppressive demand would cause you to forget who you are and you'd spiral into an identity crisis. Pa, I can't help with the harvest this year because I refuse to work in a job where I have to move my body in a way that I don't want to. It is oppressive to my bodily autonomy. In my opinion, people who demand control over such insignificant things usually do so because they lack control almost everywhere else in their lives. Side thought, there's a reason why almost all of this content is for men and by men, because the expectation and pressure on men to work, build success, and provide is far greater than anything women experience. A man is hardly even considered a human in the eyes of society and relationships if he is on the lower half of the totem pole. And you wonder why so many men fall into despair. They feel like they are invisible, like their lives have no meaning or value. There's also a reason why most of the people talking about this and creating this type of content and posting these types of videos are young, because at that stage in life, most people aren't responsible for anything or anyone beyond their own noses. Do you really think any man worth his salt who is trying to put food on the table for 2 kids would scoff at working a 9-to-5 for $100,000 a year like it's slavery, and would throw that away to make $35K just so they can wake up and work whenever they feel like it? To be frank, in my experience, most people who constantly complain about their 40-hour work week typically aren't doing anything about it. And if you ask them about their long-term plans and purpose and ambitions, they will draw a blank. It's biblical. Don't be like the grasshopper, be like the ant who works diligently. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest. How long will you lie there, you sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man. I truly believe that the pursuit of comfort and convenience in the present only feels like freedom and power temporarily, but the easy path will lead almost anyone who takes it into slavery and desolation at some point or another. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not trying to crush your hopes and dreams if escaping the 9-to-5 grind is your goal. It is true that many people strike gold with their passions and with freelancing and entrepreneurship, especially now with the internet and social media. You can make a living doing almost anything in today's world, which is absolutely incredible, and the opportunities are limitless. But the reality is, most will fail. most will not come to fruition. It will stay a passion. And honestly, the people who are truly built for high-level entrepreneurship, who have the mindset required to take their freedom at the tip of a sword, don't need to be told. They aren't spending hours a day watching videos on YouTube about how working a 9 to 5 sucks or seeking tips on how to work less. No, those 1%ers are already all in. They are already putting in the work. They are putting in more than 50, 60 hours a week. They are the ones who are working a full-time job and building a business in their free time. They are the ones planting seeds every single day. They understand the power of sacrificing the handful of freedom that they have in the short term to create a lifetime of freedom in the long term. True freedom does not come without a fight, nor does peace exist without sacrifice. If you want it, it is going to cost you something. Sacrifice is not optional. Crudely put, you can either sacrifice the present for the future, or you can sacrifice the future for the present. But be warned, there is a major difference between a man who plants 500 seeds in the present and a man who chooses to eat 500 apples in the present. When the compounding interest of time comes into play, 30 years down the road, the first man will own an orchard and the second man will work for him for an apple a day. I'll leave you with this. I think that people who are not responsible for anything beyond themselves rarely have vision to aspire to things greater than themselves. Questions, comments, concerns, perspectives? Leave them below.